Hello, good evening. Welcome to another discussion program of Renewing the African Mindset, otherwise known as RAM. Renewing the African Mindset is a platform where we share ideas, experiences, where we create awareness on topical issues within the African community. It is also a platform where there is collaboration of individuals or organizations on laudable projects. It is also a platform where we learn. It's a platform where we promote success stories of Africans within with Africans in the diaspora, and also it is a platform for reorientation of the mindset for positive achievement. My name is Anfumi Fatusin. I'm the host for the discussion program this evening. Today is a very special program. And the reason why it's special is because it is in the memory of the late Richie Dayo Johnson. Richie Dayo Johnson was a distinguished Toastmaster. Richie Dayo Johnson was like a brother to me. He was a mentor, a teacher. And Richie left an indelible mark in the hearts of so many Nigerians in the diaspora and also wherever he's been, especially in Nigeria, where he recently worked until his demise. I'll just briefly tell you a bit about Richie for those who never met him or maybe just heard about him. Richie Dayo Johnson was an experiential consultant and certified coach and an accomplished Toastmaster, a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts for over 3 decades. Prior to his demise in June this year, he worked with diverse clients from various sectors such as broadcasting, public, corporate organizations, to mention a few. Richie Dyer Johnson worked and spent years in Europe as one of the key strategists and presenters on Radio Kudirat, the voice of democracy during the military era. He later relocated to Nigeria to work with TVC and Radio Continental, where he was an integral part of the transformational team building and turned it into one of Africa's most admired. RDJ, as he was fondly called, was the charter president of Croydon and a past area governor of Toastmasters International within East Surrey and Kent. RDJ always believed that there is something good in everyone. It is from this premise that I formed a bond of mentorship with RDJ when we first met about 2 decades ago at an event in London where he encouraged me to join Toastmasters International Club, the esteemed organization founded in the US around 1924. Toastmasters is the esteemed international organization that provides a platform to develop effective leadership and communication skills through the establishment of numerous clubs across the globe. RDJ was focused on the importance of etiquette, that in some social circles he was known as Mr. Etiquette. Today, with me, I have some Toastmasters who will share with us the importance of etiquette on 5 key areas: general communication, social media, networking, and mentorship. And of course, we're using Zoom, which seems to be the new normal for us. So we'll be talking about etiquette or regarding those key areas. The second segment is to focus on some of the expressions that I shared with Richie just before he passed on. In fact, each time he called me, I was always with my pen and paper to write things down. He was a master at all these English expressions. So, without further ado, I'm just going to call on the first Toastmaster to share with us what etiquette is all about. Hilary Briggs is a seasoned leader of change with over 35 years of international industrial experience in management and engineering. Since 2002, she has worked with many entrepreneurs to help scale their businesses. She is current. She has had significant experience communicating in multicultural environments, both face to face and via video conferencing, including Skype and now Zoom. She also developed her networking skills as a key route to finding clients for her consulting business. She has been a member of Toastmasters International for over 19 years. She's a distinguished Toastmaster and past district governor of District 91, London, UK South, and that was from 2014 to 2015. She's still one of the key members of the first Toastmasters Club established in England, and that's the Grosvenor Square Speakers, based in Marble Arch, London. Please join me in welcoming Hilary Briggs. Hello, Hilary.
Hello, Anne.
Tell me, what is etiquette?
Very simply, it is a set of conventional rules of personal behaviour in polite society. So, if you like, it's guidelines of what people would expect a polite person to do.
Right. Why is it important to have etiquette?
I think it helps put people at ease in terms of just setting expectations, how people behave, and it's something, if you don't follow the rules, it it creates uncertainty in people's minds. And I think that's why it's important to be aware of what these rules are. And because if you don't follow them by knowledge or ignorance, then you could be doing yourself harm in terms of the perceptions you will create with people. So I think it allows people, like it or like it not, people will be making judgments about you. We all do it. And so, yeah, it just, if you're able to know what the etiquette is, follow it, it just means that your passage through will be that much easier.
Right. How is one perceived if one doesn't have etiquette at all?
But as I said, I think if it's a collection of things. Some things, obviously, there's Debrett's guide, and there's some things that are very, very formally set out. But there are some things that are perhaps just expectations of how one would or wouldn't behave. So if you don't follow that, then yeah, people will be judging you, and it may not work in your favour.
Would you say coming from a different cultural background must be acknowledged? And thus, the person should not be expected to act otherwise. For example, I'm of African heritage. Would you say I could use that as an excuse not to have etiquette?
I think it's very difficult. I mean, I've worked in different situations. I've lived and worked in Italy, Germany. I've worked quite a lot in the US. Um, I think if people are well travelled and experienced, let's say, I think they will recognise and be more able to make allowances. I think if you're dealing with people who, in a German expression, have only lived by the church, so within a kind of 5 kilometre radius of where they were born, let's say, they won't have the experience and be able to relate to people with different backgrounds. So I think if you're talking with people who have international experience, then you've probably got a good chance that they will make some allowances. Um, but I think it's yeah, you need to do. I would recommend you make as much effort as you can to be aware of the etiquette in whatever culture you're operating in, and to do your best within that. I think if there are slip ups, people can make allowances, but don't take it for granted.
Okay. Let me create a scenario here. I sent an email to you and I was waiting for a response. It's a request. And I wait for about 24 hours, 48 hours, let's say for a week. Would you say that's good etiquette?
I think in an ideal situation, if I send an email out, or if you send an email out, you would expect people to respond, yeah, within 24 hours. But I think it's the thing I found, and actually in early days in my Toastmaster career, when I was vice president education for the club, and the responsibility is to arrange speakers for the meetings and get everything set up. And I would find you send an email out you don't get responses. And I find in my own situation, I do my very, very best to respond, but I don't always. If I'm really, really busy or I have some other issue on, it just may not be possible. So I think in an ideal situation, respond. And if you, the one sending the email, expect a response. But if you don't get a response, let it go. You don't know what's going on for people. And I normally follow up with a phone call and try another channel. And if people don't come back, then actually my assumption is, okay, they've got other things on. And, I'll think the best, it may be over time when you get to know people, if people are consistently not responding, when you've either got to accept they're not interested in what you're offering or requesting, really busy, or maybe they're very disorganized, but that's a judgment. I would keep an open mind and try to get on with whatever I need to do.
Mhm. What about in terms of telephone call? You call somebody and you leave a message for them to call you back, and you don't get any response at all, and then you proceed with whatever you're doing, and then later on, the person now says to you, "Well, since you didn't hear from me, you should have assumed that I'm interested." How would you?
No, absolutely, I wouldn't go with that. It's similar to the emails. If you've left a message, and maybe if you want a response or you have some deadline, then I'd make sure the person knows the deadline. If I don't hear back from you by this point, I'll assume you're not interested or whatever. Set the expectations, but even without that, if people then come back and say, "Oh, I was wanting to come in," or whatever. Sorry, that's no. I think that's an assumption on their part, and that's to be honest, not in order.
Hmm. I remember one of Richie's expression was that first impression counts and it may last forever. What kind of impression would you come to when somebody is like that? They don't respond to emails in time, or they don't respond to telephone calls.
Um, Probably not a great impression, and I think it's why actually I found the role of Vice President Education in the Toastmaster Club was really interesting in terms of making a judgment about people, if you like. And I find in business, when you're dealing with lots of people, you're going to make judgments, or you need to make judgments fairly quickly. I know, is this person trustworthy? Are they organized? And so on. And if you're getting people who don't respond or are a bit erratic in their responses, then that's the impression you're left with. And it doesn't mean that I wouldn't contact people, but I'd be a bit wary. And I say there may be valid reasons if people have got personal issues or whatever. Things can happen. So I certainly I try to be understanding, but if it's a consistent pattern behaviour, then it is going to be a negative impression.
Thank you very much for that, Hilary. Thank you. We're moving on to mentoring. Like I said before, Richie Dayo Johnson was my mentor, and he was a mentor to so many other people. The next person I have is Kayode Olatuyi. Kayode joined Toastmasters International in 1999. He was president of the Harrovian Speakers based in Harrow, London in 2003 to 2004, and he became the area G governor in 2004 to 2000. He's a consultant coach and lead mentor at Career Mentors Nigeria Limited. Welcome, Coyote.
Thank you very much, Anne.
Okay, how would you define mentoring?
Um, Thank you. Mentoring is a developmental pro- program. I mean, it's a developmental process in which person A, the mentee, benefits from the experience, from the knowledge, and the support of person B, who is the mentor. So usually it is based on experience of the mentor, encouraging, supporting, signposting, advising the mentee.
Okay. What do you think is the etiquette surrounding mentoring?
Thank you very much. That question actually reminds me. a whole lot about the person that we are celebrating today. Many years ago, we got a training project to do for the borough of Brent in London, and we were to mentor a group of teenagers who are at the verge of prison. In fact, those guys that have been housebound. So, and I remember when we sat down to talk about what the 12, 14 weeks program was going to be, Richie told me, Kayode, etiquette has to take a whole 2 weeks off our program. And I said, well, we have so many other things to do. Well, we said, well, let's talk about etiquette. So we set the program, and essentially what he was saying, or um, what the relationship that etiquette has to mentoring is that mentoring, in order for people to develop, because it's a developmental process of a whole person. From it encompasses everything about them. And he says we cannot develop people unless they have etiquette, because etiquette is about courtesy, it's about respect, and it's about encouraging and enabling people to live decent, respectful lives. And so if we are going to encourage them, if you are going to build them up, then we have to be able to inculcate ideas about etiquette. So, and what we did, and of course, one of the first things we did then was set a ground rule for ourselves. And that includes, so these are the part of the etiquette in mentoring, that we have to be at the meeting venue 1 hour before the young guys will come in. That was the rule. We have to be there. As a matter of fact, he said, what we did, he said, well, actually, if it is possible, we have to make it 2 hours. We spent 1 hour sitting down somewhere, relaxing, and he was going to pay for everything that we do within that hour. So the next hour, we're going to be in the room actually waiting for the kids, so that by the time they come in, they know we are ready. So we are respecting them, and he will encourage, and that will encourage them to respect us. And another thing, throughout the process, although it was a very busy time for us, especially for him, our phones, the moment we get in there, the phone will go into a box. So that by the time the young people come in, we ask them, listen, here is our phone. Please, can you put your own phone in it? So, and they will do the same thing. So, and I realized by the time we got to the 5th week of that program that the guys, although they were supposed to have been very hard in discipline guys, but by the 5th week, the guys were doing everything that we're doing. So the etiquette in mentoring, so like I said, is respecting the other person in order for them to be able to respect you. It's coming on time. And it is about the use of those keywords that particularly most of us don't learn, or it's difficult for very many to use. That is, excuse me, please, oh, I'm sorry. And in every of those cases, and in fact, he deliberately did something around that period, especially for the first 2 times. He will go out of the room and come back and say, oh, I'm sorry, I did not excuse myself before leaving. So, and all the while, he was trying to encourage them. So the etiquette that he was trying to inculcate into the kids there was, please use these words. They are easy to use. And he went into a whole lot, the extent of encouraging of how easy it is to use. So the etiquette includes respect, the use of I'm sorry, excuse me, or pardon me, and all that. And of course, thank you. And every time we ask a question, any of the kids makes a contribution, he will usually say, thank you. So that by the end of the week, the guys learn to say thank you every time we do something for them. So these are some of the things that people do, that it's the etiquette that makes people, that begets respect, like they say. Because if you do it, some other people would. And like somebody said, the other person is our mirror. Whatever we see in them, we try to emulate, especially if we see that it's done in a dignified way. And that was what our friend was. He did his things in a dignified way. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I remember that Richie, being my mentor at the time, he would say to me, and when are you ready for us to have a quick conversation? And we'll go forth and back via WhatsApp. And the next thing he will do is that, and okay, you give me a time when the student is ready, in his baritone voice, the teacher will appear. So I suppose that's also part of the etiquette. It was more or less talking about that one has to be prepared as well, and all, of course, all those things that you actually mentioned. And you've also mentioned the benefits, some of it whilst you were talking, benefits of mentoring. Could you think of anything else during the time that you had some sort of interaction with him as well? The benefits, apart from what you just stated.
Sorry, what's the question again?
Yeah, one
Could
of
I
the
think of?
obviously one of the things that I gained from him, I gained from his knowledge, his experience,
Yeah,
and diction as well. If I pronounce some words in a funny way, he will correct me, without me feeling guilty about it,
yeah.
because I saw him as a mentor, I saw him as a friend, I saw him as a brother. So, could you think of any other benefits?
Yes, there were a whole lot of benefits in mentoring, and of course in how he related to people. Recently, at his when his death was first announced, I wrote a Facebook tribute to him, and I remember one of the things he said at the time that we were working with a group of people, which was the the way he responds to text messages and to emails is something to be. I love it so much. He has his own ways. The choice of words already shows class. And I remember some of the things that I took away from him in terms of his approach, his response to people's email or messaging, especially message or like you call him and he's in a meeting and immediately the text will come, I am in company. Could I speak with you when I finish, please? About 1 hour. And bang on dot, he will usually call 1 hour. Even if he doesn't have the time, he will call and say, okay, I can't speak now. Let's let's make it another time. So that was something that I really, really admired about him in terms of his promptness and his savvy attitude. And also, I mustn't forget to do this. When we, the area governors in, he was the area governor at the same time as myself, and we were to be trained at the Hilton Hotel in Heathrow. And I wore my native dress to that event. I was the Nigerian Agbada and all. And he saw me, but I was wearing socks with it. So he saw me and he said, oh, Kayode, you just messed up everything. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you're wearing a traditional dress. It has to be traditional. Sock is not part of the tradition. And so, and initially, I didn't think about it. But going forward and looking at others, even in very corporate environment, and I see that people don't do that. So the way he likes the promptness, the approach, the smartness is awesome. Yeah, so I benefited a lot from that. And apart from that, those very many other kids that we walked through the years, I know they've been singing praises of it. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that with us as well. Your interaction with Richie Dayo Johnson. The next Toastmaster I'm going to call on is going to focus on networking etiquette. Um, he's been a mentor to me as well as Hillary as Grosvenor Square Speakers. He's been a member of Grosvenor Square Speakers Club, which is also part of Toastmasters International since 2002. His achievements to date include um, being part of the club, always involved in the club from 2002 to 2019. He had been the club president twice, the VPE, that is the vice president education twice, vice president for membership several occasions. He's been a treasurer 6 times, secretary, the vice president for publicity, vice president for mentoring, and he's also been an area governor. 2006 to 2007, he was a division governor, and also 2007 2016 to 2017, he was involved in excellence in education and training. This was to ensure that there was improvement across the whole of his district, District 91, in terms of training. And 2017 to 2018, he was the district director. Pedro has helped grow Toastmasters clubs and mentored several Toastmasters across his district and beyond. At club level, as I said before, he's been involved in different roles and he's helped to establish good working practices and ensures an enabling environment where each member of the club excels. Please welcome Pedro Casillas. Hello, Pedro.
Hello, Anne. Good evening, and good evening to everyone on the call today. It's very, very nice to see everyone.
Thank you. Um, you've been around the clubs, not only in London. The other time I remember you going to um, France, and you were also more or less polishing on your, French in order to be able to deliver your speech in French.
That's right.
And you've been everywhere. So, how would you define networking?
Well, let's demonstrate, shall we? Could I, Anne, would you be able to um, disable the chat window for me for a moment, please?
Okay.
So that everyone can use the chat functionality.
Okay. Right.
Could you just do that, please? Just let me know when we can do that.
Right. I have.
Okay. Could I ask everyone on the call? First of all, can we see what everyone looks like? And then could I ask everyone to go to the chat window and type in which country you come from and which city you are currently living in today. So which country you come from and which city you are living in today. And let's have a look at the diversity of our audience today. Okay. Okay. See, look, my goodness, look at this. See, this is the power of traveling. There we go. We have a lot of Nigerians, some living in the UK, some living in Essex, some live in Lagos, some live in Toronto. Where else we've got now in the UK? That's very good. So this is what networking is about. It's getting to know people. It's saying hello. It's finding out where people come from. And it's having a conversation. And you do all of that before you try and put anything out about what are you about. It's getting to know someone.
Right.
If you've ever had anyone try and do a hard sell on you, you'll know that most times you'll say no. But you're more likely to buy from someone someone that you trust.
Right.
And the only way that you can do that is by talking to people. So in my opinion, networking is essentially that. It's getting to know people and getting to know people over a period of time. And not just superficial, but deeply getting to know what these people are all about, where they come from, what languages they speak, what's their customs, and sharing. And it's a two-way conversation. And that's what it's all about, Anne.
Why is it important to network?
Well, if you look at the troubles that we have in our world, the more that we get the opportunities to communicate and improve our communications, you tend to find that the world gets into a much better place when people do that. You also find that international relationships improve. Companies are able to find and expand into new markets by networking, by talking, by sharing, and reciprocating with people. So it's very important that we improve all our communications, and particularly if we want to establish new businesses around the world. And the only way to do that is to talk.
Good. Let me create a scenario for you. And this is something I've seen at several social events.
Okay.
I'm standing in a corner. It's a high profile event, and I'm looking around. I don't know anybody in particular.
All right.
But the moment I see somebody who looks like me, I head in that direction and
Okay.
just stand next to them throughout the whole evening. Would you
Right.
call that networking?
Would you call that networking? Ad? Of course not. You know that. It's absolutely not. So we know that when you walk into any social environment, there are people who look like you, people sound like you, they dress like you, don't dress like you, and it can be a minefield. So would you like a secret? Would everyone like a secret? And if you would like a secret, show me that you like a secret by going to the reactions and clicking on the thumbs up. There you go. There we go. So here's your secret, and it's worked for me. There's a poem by Rudyard Kipling. It's called Six Honest Serving Men. They've taught me all I knew. Their names were what and why and when and how and where and who. Use those words. You will find out everything about whoever you want to speak with. You can start. So Sade, how are you tonight? I hope you are well. And where are you in the world? And are you enjoying it tonight? And what do you do? And where do you do it? And who have you come with? And so on. And they do it back to you. You start to find out information about them. It shouldn't become an interrogation, however. It can become an interrogation, but it should be that sort of reciprocation. And that's a genuine way of getting to know whether people will want to speak with you, and you will find that you will be able to work a room. Now, don't do it like some people who do it, right, let's see how many people I can tick off my list tonight. Do it genuinely that you want to know the people in the room. And you'll find that most people, they're shy too. Mm-hmm. And they're looking forward to meeting you. And if you don't come across, like Hilary was talking about the etiquette, you've got etiquette in terms of how far away you are from someone. And even now with this COVID going on, even without that, there are closeness, and then you've got to respect other people at the distance. But once you've got that, eye contact, use these questions, and genuinely be interested in someone, and they will be interested in you. And then when you go to ask for their business card, they will be more than happy to give it to you. And if you haven't got a business card on you, they've probably got an iPhone. You can give them the details that way. So it is, you must go in with integrity as well. You enter in a situation where people don't know you, and if you're going in there just to try and mine information from people, you'll find that they will block you. But if you go in with a genuine desire to want to know people and get to know them, then it doesn't matter which country you come from. People like please, they like thank you, and they respect silence to allow other people to speak, and also for you to speak. And it's all of those things. It's the melting pot of all those things that makes the good communication and will improve your networking. You mentioned about Toastmasters. This is what we do at Toastmasters. It's an opportunity for you to shape up and stand up in front of people, to look at your fears, look at the camera, being able to slow down, to express yourself, but to make friends. And that's what I do, is make friends. And I've made friends in France. I've made friends in many parts of the world. And it's a wonderful way of doing it. And, that's what we do. That's what networking is all about.
Thank you so much for that, Pedro. One last question. You are actually in a lift and you've just met somebody that you've been looking for all this while. And you think, oh, regarding my business, how do I quickly make that elevator pick up?
Do you know what?
This guy is about to leave the lift. How do you do that?
And if I knew the answer, I'd be able. Do you know where it actually happened to me? I was working at BP when, if you've heard of Lord Brown. So I happened to be, it was the one thing, I got into a lift with Lord Brown, just me and him. And do you think I managed to get the words out? All I could say is, I'm working with your colleagues. So it's very difficult to do an elevator pitch. Unless you have engineered the situation, then to get the words to come out precisely, to engage, to stop that person, is very difficult. And I didn't do it. I wasn't able to do it. So if someone on the call knows how to do it, then let me know, because this 30-second elevator pitch didn't work for me. But if you are wanting to get in front of someone who is important to whatever you've been doing. As Hilary was talking earlier, it's about how you're engaging with people. You're not bombarding them with emails. Your communication's got to be precise, to the point, so that they know, oh, who are you? Why are you calling them, contacting them? What is it? Why should they take time out of their day, and so on? You know, you mentioned with Hilary, we were talking about people responding to emails. I have 300 unread emails in my mailbox, and I am going through them. It just takes time out of the day. And people say, well, why didn't you reply to me? Well, let me do my day job and reply to you too. It's not an easy thing. So sometimes you have to work the words so that you get to the top of the pile. And that applies to getting in front of a CEO. Because you've got to imagine their time is very limited to what they can and can't do, because other people are after them, their team, their suppliers, their board of directors. So it's not that people don't want to reply to you. It's perhaps sometimes they are not in a place where they can.
Thank you so much, Pedro, for sharing your thoughts with us on
Absolute pleasure, and it's a delight to meet so many people on this call today.
Thank you. Thank you. The next person is Ayo Owodone. Ayo Owodone is a compelling trainer, public speaker, and entrepreneur. He specializes in leadership, customer service, emotional intelligence, and sales mastery. Ayo was a co convenor of Find Your Edge, Communicating for Now and the Future, an executive communications project in collaboration with International Emmy Award winning veteran with CNN, the reporter Gina London. Ayo's clients included Nigerian breweries, Redeemed Christian Church of God, the Nation newspaper, Radio Continental, and Television Continental, to mention a few. Ayo is a certified competent communicator with Toastmasters International. He is the Learning and Development Manager at Liberal Credit Union. Welcome, Ayo Owodone.
Hi, and thanks for having me.
Yes, Ayo, I met you at Eagle Toastmasters in Lagos, Nigeria. We were introduced by Richie Dayo Johnson. And then I met you again at TVC. You're going to briefly share with us when you worked with Richie Dayo Johnson. So, what's TVC all about for the benefit of people who do not know what TVC is?
TVC and Radio Continental, the names have changed now. They've rebranded and they've changed their area of focus. But back then, TVC and Radio Continental were focused on it was a talk station, and it was a 24-hour news station as well.
Yeah. Okay. And Ayo Owodone is actually currently based in Canada. And I always see Ayo on Twitter. I mean, that's how I was able to get Ayo. And I was thinking, wow, maybe he's one of those people always on social media. You know, we have a lot of all these people say, go to this handle, the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, you know. So, Ayo, what's the importance of being on social media?
I think people forget that social media is your access to the world. My first client actually for sales training came via social media. During this pandemic, we focused our efforts across Africa. And to be quite honest, we've been able to have conversations with potential clients in Kenya, in South Africa, and in some other key places, places that I've never been to, but I'm having an opportunity to speak to people there who are in need of my services. So it's a big playing field, and I think we don't realize how big it is. Sometimes we just treat it as something that we just do in our own little corner. But when you hit send, or when you hit tweets or share or whatever it is via whatever social media platform that you're on, there's an opportunity for the world literally to be able to see that message and respond to you.
Hmm. So obviously, that's an effective way of engaging with people on social media.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Uh, could you just share with us briefly etiquette surrounding social media? Say, for example, on Twitter that you're very keen
Mhm.
to use.
Well, the first thing I would say is remember your past online. That's extremely crucial to anything. A few weeks ago, a friend of mine had sent a tweet, and I sent him a message. 10 years from now, when you're looking for that, I guess, political position, or you're pursuing that executive position with an organization, it could be 5, it could be 10, it could be next year, whenever it is, remember this tweet, because an audit can be done on your account and people will go back, and the internet does not forgive and the internet does not delete on your behalf. He thanked me for that. So it's something that I think everyone should remember, and we can all fall prey to it. So you watch a clip and you're laughing and you're at a height of an emotion and you're ready to hit the retweet button, but we need to also realize your tweeting or you're sending that message could be an endorsement of that person, of that product. 5 years from now or 2 years from now, is that something that you're going to be proud to do? So I think that's extremely important. Number two, I would say this was a conversation that Anna and I had yesterday. Turn it off and on, your video. My partner and I, one of the things that we've mentioned and agreed is every meeting we're going on, ensure your video is on regularly. Why? Because you want to connect directly with that person. You want to speak to that person. And there are other times when you're busy, you're running around, you're on a webinar, you're doing 20 other things, and you need to have the video off. You're cooking or you're doing other things and you don't want people to know about that. And those times is also fine. But when you're having a very important professional conversation, I think it's extremely important that the video is on, you're smiling, you're looking directly at the camera and not at yourself when you're speaking to that person. Think before you write. Talked about that already. And also, it's okay to unfollow people. That's a big one. I know that's something where you probably friended someone from 5 years ago and you don't like the content that you're noticing. It's perfectly fine to unfollow this person and move on. However, the the polite part of it is not having to broadcast it. And I see people do this a lot on social media. Oh, I am unfriending people right now, or oh, I am cleaning up. Nobody needs to know that you're doing that. Just do it and move on. The person is not quote unquote blocked. It just means you're not going to be seeing their content anymore, which is perfectly fine. And that's good news for you. It means you've grown, you've moved to a whole different level, and you're deciding, you're making some key decisions around things like that. So I would say those are some key points that if you could just take away those points, it can make a drastic difference with your social media interactions online.
Hmm. It's funny you should mention that you don't need to make the announcement. There are times I see it on Facebook. You see this banner going up. I've decided to actually prune down my followers. I've decided to go with the people that think the way I do and things like that. And I'm wondering, do we really need to do that?
Absolutely. You don't need to. Why announce it? Just get it done and move on. We share too much sometimes on social media. We broadcast ourselves a bit too much. And there was a clip I watched on Facebook once where they had some guy who was pretending to be a magician, and he would pull people into a room and he would tell them a bit about themselves. And then they would open a curtain, and all they did was visit their Facebook page and just pulled information, and they were feeding it to him in his ear, and he was sharing that. We share about our children, we share about our dog passing away, the new dog we just got. Like, we share so many things. And it's an opportunity for us to speak to our friends who we've not seen in decades sometimes. So sometimes it's okay, but we need to be mindful about some of those things that we are sharing. How personal is too personal at the end of the day? That's a question that everybody will have to figure out for themselves. And where do you fall on that spectrum?
Okay. Now, what's the best approach to adopt if you're constantly being bombarded with information on social media? You know, there are times some people come into your inbox, send you something, maybe Twitter or on Facebook, and you're thinking, I don't really need this. I don't have the time. So, I mean, what's the correct way?
Please stop sending me this information. Thank you very much. Period. And if they still send it, then you just unfollow. That's what I do. I try not to stress myself with those types of things at all, and I try not to uh, expend too much energy on things that really doesn't require that much of your energy. There's so much that is required of you on a day-to-day basis, one, and also during this time period, there's so much we're all trying to balance at the same time. Don't add extra stress on you. Don't add extra stress at all. Just get rid of it.
Thank you so much, Ayo. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you.
The last but not the least member of the panel is Shegun Olusoya. Shegun Olusoya is an acclaimed speaker, accomplished distinguished Toastmaster, and experienced IT consultant. Is the author of the book My Adoption Story: How One Decision Changed My Life Forever. Shegun is the CEO of Once Upon a Destination. This is an organization for a destination events, travel, and lifestyle company, which he co founded with his wife. He's also the non executive director of a software company based in Lagos, Nigeria. Shegun is actually passionate about building IT platforms in Africa and is so passionate about improving the lives of people all over the world. Welcome, Shegun.
Thank you very much, Anne, and thank you very much. And hello to everybody all over the world on the call. It's great to be here. Thanks, Anne. And my question.
Yes, of course. You have your question. This is now the new normal.
Right.
Everybody is on Zoom. I
Mm.
get information from people at times that, oh, I have another appointment or I have a Zoom meeting. I'm going to be zooming in and zooming out. So, like people have been saying, this is probably going to be the new normal for God knows, maybe 2, 3 years or even longer than that.
Yeah.
So, due to the pandemic, the whole world seems to be using all these video conferencing tools, but Zoom is a big one. Now, with Zoom, tell us about the Zoom etiquette. Some of the Zoom etiquette we need to know.
Very interesting question. Thank you very much for that. And in this new normal, we've got to learn so many skills. We've got to learn so many ways of doing things. And I've been on, since the lockdown, I must have been on at least 100 Zoom calls. And it's some of them have been amazing, some of them have not been. But generally, I have a few rules that I've looked to, I've used, and I think should be used in any Zoom call. The first thing to me, and I think somebody mentioned it earlier, that Richie Dayo Johnson, we talked about it and we agreed we have to do it. Do not be late. I mean, that's one of the things that I got from him. And even now, I do a lot of work in Lagos, and I'm there like half an hour before, and they call me Englishman. And even my kids, it's funny, I take them to parties and we're on time. And then the party is not started. They laugh at me. They say, Dad, you've done it again. But he always says, don't be late. And these days, what people do with a lot of Zoom calls is you have a waiting room, and some people would not let you in if you're late. So please don't be late, because what usually happens with other people is they come in late and they start asking questions about things you've dealt with. Do you want people to start the meeting again because of you or whatever? But the first thing to me is don't be late. The other thing we've spoken about today is turn on your camera. Please turn on your camera. It's not, you're not engaged if you're not on camera. If you, like Ayo said, if you're doing something and running around and you're not really important to the meeting, maybe you can turn your camera off. But if you're a speaker or you are involved in a meeting in any way, shape or form, then your camera should be on, especially if you're talking to an audience. I mean, would you stand behind a screen if you're talking to a group of people? You can imagine a Toastmasters meeting, and then I stand behind a screen and I'm talking to people. They're going to ask, what's going on? Is this an act or something like that? So really, you've got to be there. You've got to be in front of your camera. The other thing is, please sit still. Some people, I watch some people and they just drive me, they can get me dizzy because they're doing something, they're multitasking. You can see their hands are going over, they're talking to somebody, and you just think, what's going on with this guy? Sit still for a second. So please sit still. The other thing I always say is, please do not eat. I was watching a clip the other day, and what they said was that the chips, I don't know why, they said chips is the worst thing to eat when you're on Zoom. I don't know why, but hey, maybe it's because it goes all over the place, but do not eat, please. I mean, if you really have to eat, like you've been having, sometimes I have back-to-back meetings and it gets to a place I'm really hungry. And I'll say to guys, I'm sorry, I've got to have something to it. I'm going to turn my camera. But please, 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 if you're going to be eating, then turn off your mic. Make sure you are on mute. Because if you're eating chips and stuff like that, it's so irritating to everybody else on the call. The other thing is, please, 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 about your camera, remember to turn it off when necessary and turn off your mute. There've been all sorts of things on the internet about, there was a gentleman the other day, he was on a meeting and his so-called girlfriend walks past behind him. Apparently, this is another member of staff who is, anyway, it was crazy. And everybody sees it and they're like, whoa, this is what is going on. So be careful, be careful. I mean, this is happening so much now that we're doing, we never used to see all this, but it's happening so much with people forgetting to turn off their camera or forgetting to go on mute, and then having all sorts of conversations with people. There are also other ones that are happening. I don't even want to go into them. And the other thing is, get good at interrupting. I mean, in this meeting, we've muted everybody else. But there are times when you have a meeting where it's not that big and you allow people to be unmuted. We have to learn how to interrupt people, like your hand up, using the reaction buttons. Pedro did a good one. A lot of Zoom meetings I've seen do not use the reaction buttons. Please use them. They're there for a reason. Use them if you want people to ask a question or want people to indicate they want to talk, then please use the reaction buttons. But within Zoom meetings, please, let's learn how to interrupt. Even the other thing that might be good, especially we do that in Toastmasters and other meetings, is that you set the rule of engagement at the beginning of the meeting and let everybody know, okay, we're going to mute you if you want to talk. Yeah. If that is not done, then please learn to interrupt. Don't just start talking. And then we find out 2-3 people are talking over each other and, oh man, nobody can hear. And the other thing is, please try to sit in an office or in a room where you can close your door. Because like I said earlier, if you don't close your door or if there's noise coming in, I've had meetings where kids just walk into the room, hi daddy, dinner's ready, things like that. But close your door and give people good instructions about the fact that you are at an important meeting. You don't want your dog just running into the room because it's happy or something like that. So please close your door. And the final thing is, don't multitask. If possible, please concentrate on the meeting. Do not be on your phone. Some people are there and they have their phone like this and they're like, yeah, talking, and then they put it down. And please don't multitask. Just please, let's concentrate on the meeting. I think another speaker said earlier that they come into the meeting and put their phones in a box. Please put your phone on mute. And the other thing, although some people turn off their phones, but you can still hear, and I heard it on this meeting, those notification beeps. I heard it even in this meeting, ping, because, and that can be very irritating. Please remember to turn that off as well. Although you've put your phone in vibrate, your notifications, what do you call it? Your notification sound still keeps going on in the background. Please remember to do that. And those are my 7 tips, really. I hope we've learned something. They're just rules of engagement, the etiquette of actually doing a good Zoom meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Shego. I remember what Pedro actually said, that we're all learning to use Zoom. I remember when I first started my weekly discussion program back to back since April, since the lockdown. That's, we've been doing these meetings. And I remember the very first one, it was like we were in a marketplace because we had a chime and we didn't mute anybody. Everything was just so chaotic. And people were just, unmuting themselves to talk and things like that. So it's a way of developing yourself as well, or, to ensure that you have a smooth running meeting. And but the one that really gets to me is that there are times when people do not check their background,
Mm.
or the lighting is so bad. You could just tell that that's a figure. I'm sure that's a human being talking. And it's so dark in there. So people need to watch out for their backlight as well, even if they have to invest in a table lamp, especially if they're delivering any training program, or even if you're having a meeting like this. It doesn't have to be a high level meeting. It's so, so important. And like you rightly said, to if you have a little room that you can be in, so that people would not just interrupt. Because I was actually on one high pod meeting, and the wife of one of the people talking, one of the speakers just came in. I wonder what you're doing there. And it was embarrassing because we do stream live onto YouTube, and there's nothing I can do about it because it's already gone live. But another thing I just also want people to also remember is the fact that, which I'm actually going to ask you, Shego. I'm actually seated. Does it matter if I'm wearing anything? I could be, after all, I'm at home. Nobody, you're looking at me though. I could dress anyhow.
Mm. I,
Is it
I,
allowed?
well, I sometimes I just go serious. I try to dress based on the occasion. If I have an important meeting, I had an important meeting a few days on Friday, and I had on my suit and tie at least. Then I had on a pair of trousers. Okay, the shoes don't really matter, but the trousers is important because I don't know. I'm sure all of us have seen the videos of guys who they think the minute I finished, they got up and found out that they just had their underwear or and so I mean they the other people in the meeting are calling them to say, hold on a second, we can see your whatever, and so you have to be careful because something might happen. You get up, you think, oh, I just have on shorts and whatever, and then you get up, you've forgotten, or you've not turned on off your camera. You think you have. So my advice to people is go onto the dress the way you want people to see you, at least up till your shoes don't really matter that much because I hope hopefully the camera is not going to get that out there. But up there, yes, you've got to be, I would say, put on, if you're a lady, put on your skirt or whatever, and make sure that you're fully dressed just in case you get up or turn around and you forget to put off the camera. Very important.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Because like I always say, the only time that I allow speakers to go behind the camera is when we're dealing with sensitive topics like domestic violence, and we want to protect the identity of the survivors. But it's like when you're going to a party and they ask you to give a tribute and you're behind the camera, and I'm like, why would you be behind the camera if you're talking? So I think we've learned something from this discussion, and from Shegun sharing with us the Zoom etiquette, because Zoom is going to be with us for a very, very long time.
And so
So
many
this
other methods of meeting, not just.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. So the second segment of this discussion today is one of Richie Dayo Johnson's expressions, which he shared with me. Apparently, these ones that I have taken down were the ones he shared with me about 2 weeks before he passed on. So it's I just feel we need to encourage ourselves, and at the same time to learn from these expressions. So I'm just quickly going to run through them, and I would ask members of the panel to have one or two expressions to share with us. There is one called care. Create a rare experience. What do you understand by that, Hillary?
I think if you want to be remembered by people, as we've come up in various of the conversation this evening, we're all being bombarded by all sorts of information all the time. So if you want to be memorable, then create that rare experience as something that is going to make you stand out. So it may be the way you treat someone. I think listening is such a rare skill. And as Pedro was mentioning in networking, I think actually being able to listen and really be there for someone, that will be a rare experience for a lot of people. It might be, yeah, just showing some compassion or some words of wisdom. But I think if you overdo it, that can be a problem as well. So it's a balance as ever, but trying to be do something that's memorable.
Okay. Now, another expression is sharing your vulnerability is your pathway to intimacy. Ayo. I hope Ayo is not frozen.
Um,
Okay, Shegu, you take that, please. Sharing your
Okay,
vulnerability
I'm here.
is your pathway to intimacy.
Ayo is there. Do you want to go ahead, Ayo?
I missed that point that I was frozen
Okay,
for a bit, then I
right.
came right back in.
One of the times that I've had to sit with Richie, he would say to me that sharing your vulnerability is your pathway to intimacy. What would you understand? What's your understanding of that expression?
Well, I believe vulnerability breeds vulnerability. The more open you are with people and you let them into your world, it gives them an opportunity to reduce their walls so that you can get into their world as well. So when I first joined Libro Credit Union, first of all, I was brought in as a manager. There were only three black managers rather, in a company of like 700 people and probably 40, 50 managers altogether. And in my department, I was the only black person as well. So there's this tall black guy that walks into a room and different sets of people. And it was an opportunity for me to either be scared or it's also an opportunity to connect with people. And one of the key things that Richie and I had always talked about is opening up, sharing about your life, because it gives people an opportunity for them to also open up. So you can take that wall and turn it into a bridge. And that was something that he lived regularly. I saw him do that consistently with me and with people around me.
Right.
Awesome. Awesome.
I'll go back to you again, Hillary. All your ducks can never line up in a row.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there are so many things in life that it's a balance. So I guess for a lot of people, balancing work and home life. Yes, sometimes you can be very, very busy or you've got a lot of family issues. It can be difficult to get those together. So I think that's what comes up to me. And I guess my tips would be being flexible and being aware of what is most important at the time. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Kayode, you cannot change anyone's behavior without understanding their beliefs.
Oh, thank you very much. That is always true. That unless you know where people are coming from, there's no way to be able to inspire them unless you know their story. If you know their story, it gives you the platform and the best way in which you can actually connect with them. And this is something that Richie, that is why he likes to tell at every event, he likes to say something about himself so that whatever he message that he's going to put across, people can connect with it. And I saw him do this every time in events where he had to present. So unless it's the truth in that if you don't know where people are coming from, it's like you want to inspire somebody. I mean, in psychologist world, this is something that we all have our approach to taking to dealing with people. Some they like to see, some they like to hear, some they like to touch. So if you are telling somebody whose mode of communication is touching, then surely you won't connect. Everything you say will fly, above them. So once you understand where they are coming from and where you are coming from, then it is the best way in which you can actually have the communication.
All right. Thank you very much. Ayo, quickly, what do you want? What's your contribution
Thank
to
you.
that expression?
Yeah.
I started working with RDJ from 2011 to about 2016, and I watched him evolve, and he always had a way to challenge young people that worked with us in those days. I guess he had just recently come from the UK, I believe in 2009. I don't remember the actual date. But what I loved was as the years went by, whenever we, had a conversation about employees, he would always say, he started to talk about the history, and he took it further than what he just saw in the onset. So I loved how he evolved over time. Uh, Believing the Nigerian story, trying to understand the Nigerian story. Why is everybody always going to school? Or why is everybody always, there's always some degree that they're always chasing in this country. And it was always a joke that we both had, but I loved how he sought to understand people. In the onset, he would say, what is wrong with people? But over time, he would say, no, Ayo, you need to understand them better, and you need to get into their world. So I think this particular quote, I saw him evolve into it over time as he lived in Nigeria, pushing to understand the Nigerian story of the regular common man who had to hustle and bustle just to get to a 50,000 naira job or something like that. And I think that really helped him to love people more. And more importantly, it really helped him to serve people a lot better.
Okay. So this will lead me to the next quote, Ayo. Once your location changes, orientation changes.
Ah, yeah. I'll give you some examples. There was a point. So I was general manager, and he was my director. A well-known noted politician came to the office, and all the VPs and all the big people were following them and walking around for about an hour. I had work to do. So, I greeted when they came to my office, welcome, and I walked away. And later on, he came to my office, he slams the door, and he was like, don't you ever do that again. I'm like, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I have to get to work. I've already extended my greetings and hello. And he's like, Ayo, that is what I call political suicide. Those are the words he used for me. Ayo, that's political suicide. So from then on, I had to learn some of those things from him because I wasn't used to it. Or a politician comes and they bring a brown envelope. How do you handle that? Do you reject it? That's political suicide. So what do you do about such a thing? Because you can't report that anywhere in your books. Yeah. So how do you handle it? So those are things that he learned quickly over time. And those are things that I had to learn from him as well. And there were many times that I would come to him and say, what do I do about this? I had just come from the United States at that point, returning back to Nigeria, and he had been around a bit longer than I had. So that was a quote that he shared regularly with me. And it was, you are too trusting. You are too trusting. This is not the US, Ayo. Our economy in Nigeria is not built on trust. So it was very interesting, some of those things he used to share behind closed doors.
Thank you so much. Now, Shego, I'm going to give you a couple here. Your mouth is like a garden. If you do not prune it, someone will plant anything on it.
Yeah, it's a very very interesting quote of RDJ's, and he lived this because he was very specific and deliberate about things he said. And what he was trying to say here is that you have to be careful what you say. You have to be deliberate. You have to be specific. You have to be clear. And you said it earlier about how he corrected the pronunciations, and he would be very deliberate and say, look, what you say out there makes a difference to everybody. And you have to be clear, you have to be specific, you have to be deliberate. And he was quite, the pronunciations and enunciations and all the other things he did were quite clear and specific. He didn't leave anything to doubt. And I think that's what he was saying. I remember very well, we had so many conversations about life, about how things would work. And he always would say, Shegun, you have to be clear. You have to understand people, and you have to know how to deal with people. And that I lived with, and I walked through over time. And he's one sort of person that doesn't play around. He's quite clear. He's quite specific. He always makes it clear to people. Apart from that, he doesn't put anybody down either. He comes to you and he's very, very cautious as well. And that's what I loved about him. That even though he corrected you, you know, some people correct you and you feel, wow, oh man, I messed up, man. He corrects you and you feel good. It's just a skill he had. And he had that fatherly thing. I met him many years ago. I remember I'd known him because my wife, my brother-in-law is his friend. We went to primary school together. So I'd known him. And then we had an event. I was looking for somebody to deal with this, to help us manage this event. And everybody was saying, Richie Dayo Johnson, Richie Dayo Johnson. I'm like, okay, I know this guy, but I don't know. And he came to the event. He was on time. One of the things he said, I said, Richie, do you want something to eat at the event? He said, when I go to events, I do not eat at the event. I've had something to eat. When we're ready, we get on with it. And we went on with the event. And I thought, wow. And he handled this event in such an amazing way. So I said to him, I said, Richie, how do you do this? He said, come to Croydon Communicators, 7 o'clock. Spread eagle. I'm like, spread eagle? What is he talking about? And then I didn't go. And then I'll call him. I'll say, Richie, I really want to understand this public speaking thing. They say, Shegun, 7 o'clock, spread eagle.
Shegun, may I remind you that there's some Toastmasters here?
Yeah.
There's some Toastmasters here. So we need to be mindful of our timing. Now, let me quickly
Sorry,
give
I got carried
another
away.
quotation. You review, rearrange your mindset through understanding both cultures. This was me saying to him, you now live in Nigeria. So does that mean that you will change your principles in order to be able to live in Nigeria without any stress? And that's when it came with a quotation that once your location changes, orientation changes. And then he also said to me, no, Anne, you review, rearrange your mindset through understanding both cultures. So I
Absolutely.
think I've answered my question, haven't I?
Yeah, but I'll just add to that. It's very important that when you go to an environment, and I moved back in 2013. And before that, I'd gone out to Nigeria and I did workshops. I remember I did a workshop in Abuja in 2011. And I have this framework we use for this IT system. But one of the things I said to them, I said, look, this has been tried and tested all over the world. It works. But there's a nuance as far as this environment is concerned. I have to learn that. I'll bring everything, but I have to learn the nuance of that environment. And that is what this is all about. You can't go into an environment and think that you're going to impose anything. If you have any skills, you have to understand how the people work and then merge it. And I think that's what he's talking about.
I think this is also what RAM is also about as well. Our culturalization. This is because we say we're Africans living in the diaspora, and I'm always saying that take what's good in the African culture, what's good in your host nation's culture, and match the two together without losing your heritage. So I think it's understanding both cultures. Yes, renewal of the mindset, and really, Richie reminded me of Ram. He would always say to me, and this is just to do with renewal of the mindset. Rearrange your mindset through understanding people, understanding your environment, understanding your culture. So I suppose that's also what he meant when he also said recalibration of the mind. So let me go over to Kayode now. Never make someone a priority when someone makes you an option.
Yes. It's interesting that he said that. He used to say that, and I remember many times he would ask me. We had a mutual friend who was running some projects in London, but travels around the world. And every time he will ask whether, Kadi, have you called him? And I would say, well, I called, he didn't answer. Every time he will ask, Kadi, did you call him? And so one day he asked me, Kadi, so why do you keep calling him when he will not answer your calls or when he will not reply your calls? And I thought, well, I just want to find out how he is. And he asked me, and he threw that phrase at me that you're obviously an option for him. So why are you making him a priority? Why are you saying you want to go there? But it's interesting. It's interesting because Richie is somebody who will build bridges on something like that. And eventually, over the years, he actually built a bridge with this mutual friend. And so much so that he finally ironed out whatever differences we had or why the person wasn't returning my calls. And going back to what Ayo was saying earlier, which is about changing of mindset and reorientation. I remember the first time I ever said to him about Nigeria, what he said to me was that, no, I can't survive there. I remember many years ago, he said, no, Nigeria, no, I'm not sure I can make it there. I'm not sure I can survive. And so when he went back and I asked him, so after about a year, how are things? He threw that phrase that when the location changes, the mindset will change. And so he's somebody who he was so good at adapting. And I think that is on his ability to improve himself because he was keen and passionate about improving people. So he was also keen about improving himself. And one thing, going by what Ayo said about correcting you and you not feeling bad about the correction, that was because he will always say something. He will say, before saying that, he will go to the Toastmaster rule of commend, recommend, and commend.
Yeah, the sandwich approach.
Yes, he will always commend you about something, an area that he knows that you are very good at. For example, with me, and he will correct me, but there are things that he will say, well, if it's about a quotation or if it's about a book or an idea, he will ask me. So making me feel good about the aspect that I'm particularly good, but correcting me so that I can take that one on board.
Okay.
Yeah,
let's move sharpish, Kayode, because we are supposed to be Toastmasters, keeping to time. So and keep the expressions. So, Ayo, have you ever heard of this from Richie? Cultural barrage. And when I asked him, he said everyone wants to sound important and display arrogance.
And I think that's very apparent in our culture, where in a meeting, someone would say, I will just be brief, or, thank you very much. Thank you. It's good to hear. I just want to share a point, and then 5 minutes later, the person is still going on. I like that statement. And I think that's something that we all need to remember. Do we really have to be that person that reiterates what 5 other people have said in our own way or in our own angle or with our own specific story? Is it really necessary? I'm currently leading a coalition of African associations in this region, and we had a meeting with the police a few weeks ago just to talk about how do we move forward with this whole Black Lives Matter and things of the like. And that came up so many times where it's not just a Nigerian thing. I thought it was. I actually thought it was just a Yoruba thing. No, it's not. It's an African thing where my brother from Sudan is like, I just need to share a point,
Oh, Ayo is frozen. Okay, that leads me to another point which Richie used to say, that when particularly, a group of people, when they want to
I can get involved. Yikes.
Oh, okay, because you were frozen for a second. That leads on to the next expression where Richie said, when some people, a particular group, want to actually comment, they actually want to give a speech. And that speech is like, the first of all, oh, thank you for this, and that, thank everybody practically. And then begin to talk. And by the time they answer, oh, wow. So these are one of the things that I learned from him. Now, I'm going to throw this back to Hillary. If you don't control your time, someone else will.
Absolutely. Again, when it's come up a number of times, time is such a precious resource, but we all have the same 24 hours a day. And yeah, if you need to have an idea of what's going to be best, of how to spend your time to achieve what you want. However, I think, again, there's a bit of balance. If you're totally ruthless about your time and ignore everyone else, that's not okay. So I think have your priorities and be flexible as well.
Okay. We'll finish on this one. Shegun, have you heard of this before? You must have. Toastmasters 5 Ps.
Yeah.
Richie used to remind me. And prior preparation prevents poor performance.
Absolutely,
How true is that?
absolutely. And that's one thing I learned from him as well. I joined Toastmasters in 2003 and I went on to become distinguished president and distinguished area governor. And one thing he always said to me was preparation. And I would prepare with meetings we had or events we had, we would sit down, prepare days before, and then he always says, you have to be early. So you are early again and go through it. And in anything we do in life, we have to be prepared. And I think it's the Boy Scouts rule. I don't know if Boy Scouts still exist, but it says be prepared. And if we weren't prepared for this meeting, it wouldn't have gone so well. Thank you for me.
Oh, thank you. Well, as in Mark Victor's words, Mark Victor Hansen's words, Richie also used to remind me, each one, rich one, each one, teach one. I hope people have learned something today from Richie's expressions, from the guy who actually left an indelible mark in the hearts of so many people. Maybe to just take a couple of comments from the chat box, or Yusuf Akpino, if you want to say something. I don't know whether, because Richie used to be a member of Eagle Toastmasters Club in Lagos, Victoria Land, or if Kike is still there. I remember when I went to the club and they were giving presentations and I joined the table topics. Lo and behold, I won. And somebody said to me, she just can't be a visitor. And Richie said, yeah, she's a Toastmaster. So I just want to go straight into the chat box and see whether somebody would like to comment or ask questions. I think there was a lady who earlier. There was somebody who asked a question earlier. I think, what was the title of the book that uh, maybe Pedro
Pedro, yeah.
talked about? And if the person could, Hillary, would you happen to know the title of the book? When Pedro mentioned something, I can't even remember what it
Yeah, I
was.
think it's Rudyard Kipling he was mentioning, and I'm desperately trying to think. I ought to know the book, but I think if you Google Rudyard Kipling, the book will come up.
All right then. Okay, thank you. Shadi is actually raised up her hand. What's your question?
Okay. Thank you for me. My question is to Shegun Olusanya.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know, you were giving those 7 Zoom etiquette.
Yep.
And one of the things that you said that I need you to kind of put clarity for is sitting still.
Yep.
You said you have to sit still. And then stop looking down at your phone or whatever. If you notice, I've been looking down a lot because I'm writing.
Okay.
And I wanted to make sure that we clarify that because a lot of things were said on this program and I've truly, really enjoyed it. I probably got about 3 pages of stuff that I wrote down because I don't know how we can just listen to this and not write or use our phone to keep notes. You know what I mean?
Okay, when I said sit still, I didn't say you shouldn't write. I mean, if somebody's talking, I do a lot of talking, and when I see people use their notes or bring notes, I'm happy because they think I'm going to be saying something important, and they really respect me or something like that. So it's good to write. But when I say sit still, some people feel that like if I'm going like this and going like that during the meeting, or I stretch out and I'm getting out of view and I sit down, and that's what I'm talking about. And it's better to sit still. You're writing something, you're not just moving or just getting out of the camera all of a sudden and then coming back. and people are thinking, what is she doing? And even if you're not looking at the person, all of a sudden you see somebody go back. It attracts your attention and takes you away from what you're doing. So it doesn't mean you got to sit still like a statue. What becomes
okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Because I was doing a lot of moving. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay, thank you.
All right. Yes. Toyin Magbagbiola would like to make a comment. Yes.
I remember, was it Pedro made a conversation about how he met somebody in the elevator and he couldn't make a comment. I've got a strategy. What you do is you smile and you pay a genuine compliment. So if it's the shirt, a top, hairstyle, earrings, and that will actually help you build and start a conversation. So that's a tip I could give you. Just smile and compliment them genuinely.
Thank you very much for that. KG, I think KG is still with us. KG Sonny, would you like to quickly make a comment before we wrap up? Okay. KG.
Yes, please. Thank you so much for putting this together. It's been amazing, bringing up so many fond memories of RDJ. I mean, his
KG,
legacy lives on.
KG, can I quickly interject? Were you listening when Ashego was talking about Zoom etiquette?
Yes, I was. And I wanted to.
You are also a
so let me. Yes, I am. So, I mean, you'd pardon me, please. Then I'll quickly just put on the camera, for proper etiquette, just to show that we are learning here. We are honoring our DJ. Okay.
I think we've lost her. I remember. Have we lost her? Okay. On this occasion, we can go behind the camera. Can you hear me, KG? On this occasion, you can.
Yeah. So RDJ, it's not a day of tribute.
No. Can you hear me, KG? You can go behind the camera. I remember Pedro saying during a test run that there are times because of where you are, there could be a problem with network. So when you switch on the video, it might actually affect the connection. So on this occasion, fellow Toastmaster, we will give you the permission to go behind the camera.
Thank you so much for being so kind. So I was saying that those quotes brought back so many memories of conversations with him. And truly, he lived by example. He was a mentor, he was a coach. He lived passionately, he lived fully, and encouraged everyone to do the same. So thank you so much. I mean, all these words you've said and the experiences you've shared with him, I'm taking along in my heart, and I'm sure a lot of us are doing the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So we've come to the end of the discussion. So I'd like to thank the panel for being here. Hilary Briggs, Pedro Casillas, Shegun Olusoya, Ayo Owoduni, Kayode Olatuyi, and of course the rest of the participants here with me today as we celebrate the work of Richie Dayo Johnson. And it doesn't stop there. So if for any reason you want to join Toastmasters, just Google it. Toastmasters is everywhere in the whole world. So be a part of it, because it's a fantastic place to be, to develop yourself, your communication skills, leadership skills as well.